The story of the Jewish holiday of Purim is told in one of the most dramatic books in the ancient Hebrew Bible. This one is spooky. It's one of the most eerie and incredible hidden predictions in ancient literature. A few letters mysteriously written in a different size, a strange request, all of these are part of the ancient scroll of Esther, and they may point with astounding precision at a specific fateful date more than 2 millennia in the future. And when 10 people died, the last one may just have acknowledged it. What am I talking about? So the Scroll of Esther was written more than 2,500 years ago. It tells the dramatic story of an evil prime minister named Haman, who gained King Ahasuerus of Persia's permission to annihilate all of the Jews in his massive kingdom. He wasn't the last leader whose name started with an H that wanted to do that, and that is going to be part of our mystery. Now, Haman's plot unraveled when Queen Esther, who was Jewish, convinced the king that Haman was out to get her, and therefore he was evil and must be stopped. On the day that the anti-Semites had planned to kill all the Jews, the 13th of the Hebrew month of Adar, the Jews fought back, defeated their enemies, killed Haman, and killed his 10 sons. Now, Haman also had a daughter who also died on that day, and we will talk about her a little bit later. And here we find the first mystery element. Because when the scroll lists the 10 sons of Haman, 4 of the letters in those names are written at a different size than the rest of the text. 1 is large, the letter Vav, and 3 are smaller, the letters Taf, Shin, and Zayin. Why this difference? There's no plausible explanation readily available. And yet every single scroll of Esther that is handwritten will have it written in this exact fashion. What is the second mystery element? The scroll tells us that the 10 sons of Haman had already been killed, but on the next day, Esther has a strange request. Please grant the Jews of the capital to do tomorrow as they did today and let the 10 sons of Haman be hanged upon a tree. But why hang the 10 sons of Haman upon a tree tomorrow? They had already been killed today. What was to be gained by this hanging? Maybe, just maybe, when Esther says tomorrow, she doesn't only mean in 24 hours. Perhaps this is a prophetic request. She may be referring to a date way in the future, perhaps in the year 1946. 1946? Is that year actually hinted at in the scroll? Quite possibly. The Hebrew calendar counts the years not the way the Western world does, but rather from the creation of Adam, the first human. Thus, the year 1946 would be the equivalent of the year 5707. Let's look at those letters again. Hebrew letters are often interpreted based upon their numerical value. So Aleph, the first letter, is 1. Bet is 2, Gimel is 3, up till 10, and then it increases in tens, and then when it gets to Kuf, which is 100, it increases in hundreds up to 400 Taf, which is the last letter. The letters that are differently sized include a large letter, Vav, which would be the equivalent of 6. The 3 smaller ones are Taf, which is 400, Shin, which is 300, and Zayin, which is 7. 400 plus 300 plus 7 is 707. The 707th year of the 6th Hebrew millennium could be the year 5707, which would be 1946 into 1947 in the Western counting. To be sure, October 16th, 1946. A day which, according to the Jewish calendar, is a holiday. It's called Hoshana Rabbah, and it is the day of judgment for the nations of the world before God. Now, remember that Esther had mysteriously asked for permission to do, quote, tomorrow, close quote, what had been done today and to hang the 10 sons of Haman on the tree. So what happened on that incredible day of October 16th, 1946? 10 sons of Haman, 10 leading Nazis were hanged. 10 disciples of a man who wanted to kill all the Jews whose last name started with H. Exactly. But there may be more, believe it or not. Haman had an 11th child, a daughter, as I mentioned. In the most ironic and humorous section of the story, King Ahasuerus desires to honor a Jew named Mordecai, who had saved the king's life by revealing an assassination plot. And he instructs none other than Haman, who hates the Jews and hates Mordecai, to parade Mordecai through the city on the king's horse wearing the king's royal garments. So according to a Jewish tradition not written in the scroll but in the Talmud, Haman's daughter saw the parade from atop an adjoining building, and she thought that it was her father on the horse, and certainly it's Mordecai, that hated Jew, who must be leading the horse. So she emptied the chamber pot on him. When she realized that she had just dumped raw sewage on her father and not Mordecai, she flung herself from the roof and killed herself. She committed suicide. There was an 11th Nazi convict who was supposed to be hanged on that day, that October 16th, but instead, before, he committed suicide in his prison cell. This was Hermann Goering. But wait a second. If we're going to be following this closely, it was Haman's daughter who killed herself. Goering wasn't a woman, he was a man. True, but reliable sources claim that Goering happened to be a secret transvestite. At any rate, the most remarkable moment in this whole story is when the last of the Nazis to be hanged was taken up to the gallows. His name was Julius Streicher, and he had been the editor of the virulently anti-Semitic newspaper Der Stürmer. As they dragged him up to be hanged, the man went berserk. He was screaming nonsensical things, having a complete breakdown. But then, just as he got into position, he shouted out the strangest thing of all. Purim Fest, 1946. How odd. The festival of Purim comes in the spring, usually in the month of March, not October. Why was he saying this now? So it's reasonable that he knew enough Jewish culture to know about Purim. But there may be more to it than that, because there's an old Jewish tradition that says that although we no longer have prophets like Moses or Isaiah, the occasional prophecy may still be heard in the crazy words of a crazy person. Was Streicher confirming the secret code of the Esther scroll? The scroll of Esther is part of the Jewish Bible, and although it is not a prophetic work, the Talmud declares that it was written with divine spirit. Jewish history is a living, breathing thing. It's not impossible to say that the divine spirit guided Mordecai and Esther to imprint a distant prophetic request in a secret code in their book, a code that could not be deciphered until October 16th, 1946.